Hello, I'm Greg Hrutkay, Hrutkay Mods, and in today's video we will be upgrading my late 2009 27-inch iMac I have dubbed the Dual 880 system. And what do I mean by that? Well, currently it has an 880 i7 in it, and we are going to be upgrading it to an 880M GTX NVIDIA card here that is Mac flashed. We will also be doing 32 gigs of RAM and an SSD. This should be fun. Yeah, that didn't work. Let's go anyway. Alright, so before we begin, let's go over everything that we have that's going into the system here. Right here we have my Mac flashed GTX 880M, which is metal compatible. There is a few problems with these. One, they don't work on the newer 2011 iMacs very well. They have a lot of problems for some reason, but they work fine on the 09 and 10 apparently. And this is the most powerful Kepler card NVIDIA made that will fit in an iMac, and this one's already Mac flashed, so I won't have to do any flashing. I'll have all the features and boot screens and stuff needed. There is one drawback currently. This is an old card, and even though it's a very powerful card, Apple dropped NVIDIA driver support a few operating systems ago, so when you are trying to run this on a newer OS, you have to wait until they release NVIDIA drivers for patching, which may or may not work in the future, but currently it works fine in Ventura, so that's good. So we'll be using this card. We'll also be installing 8 gigabytes of RAM here. These two are from my 2011 iMac, and then these two I had laying around. I think I was going to put those in a 2011 MacBook Pro, and just never got around to it. These, believe it or not, are the same modules. Okay, these are identical. This one is identical to this one. It's got the same chips, same layout, it's just got a different board color. So these should work perfectly in dual channel and give us the maximum. It's even, when I say it's got the same chip, it's literally got the same chip on it. So that would be awesome. And then we've got a 1 gigabyte SSD I just found laying around. That should work pretty good too. So we'll be upgrading all that. And right now with our current specs, we've got a HD 4850, which was, believe it or not, the most reliable card that came in these. Well, one of them. The 4000 series didn't tend to nuke themselves, but these do not support metal. So if you want to run a newer OS, you won't have metal support, so you can't run metal programs, which most of these OSs now rely on metal programs. So if you're not running metal, you're going to have issues even with patches. It was a decent card in 2009. It had a good amount of power in 2009. It's 2023. This is a slow card and not very good. In fact, I think this was like the base card you could get in this system. And this system originally came with an i7 960 in it. Greg Thompson actually sold me this. And if you check this video right up here, you can watch that video when I first got it. He upgraded this to an 880 i7, which is the most powerful i7 that will fit in this iMac. It's a 3.06 gigahertz, really speedy, nice system, well, CPU. And here's the specs on the card. Everything here we have just running to show you. So yeah, that's the iMac itself as we speak currently. And I would run performance tests on this, but we're still on High Sierra. And believe it or not, I can't find any other than, like, let's see here. We could run Heaven or Valley on this. I've got both, but I think the Heaven's not working on this for some reason. Where did my Valley go? There's Valley. We can run Valley on this, and it will run. and it will run decently, but let's do Extreme HD just to see how bad it is. This test actually came out around the same time this card came out, which was like 3 years after the card that's in this came out. So this is a little old. It might be 4 years. I'm losing count of my years now. You know, honestly, I don't know if Extreme HD would work on this. It's going to be really bad. And let's run it and see what happens. Well, that's not a good sign. So I think this GPU, believe it or not, is actually failing. It was working fine in the intro. That's not a good sign at all. Quit. Huh. Well, it might be a good time to upgrade this card. Let's do custom. Let's just see if it will run. We'll do it in this resolution in windowed mode and see if it'll do it. That would be a no. Well, if we could do benchmarks, we'd do benchmarks, but for some reason the card decided to nuke itself, 3D wise anyway. It's weird because it was working fine. Let's, what settings did I have this on originally? Just for that video in the beginning. Maybe it will run that way. Well, it's a good thing we're upgrading this GPU because I think it just toasted itself. 2D is still working, 3D isn't. That's crazy because it was working great. Oh well, I mean, you guys saw it running in the intro. It did run. It doesn't now. So, yeah, let's quit here. That's kind of disappointing. But yeah, I guess that's a good cue to start this upgrade. All right, so before we crack this thing open, I want to test this RAM. Now, Apple says that this RAM will not run in this system. Apple actually says that the max RAM configuration for a 27-inch late 2009 is, I think, 24 gigs. This is 32 gigs. It also says it will only run 1066 RAM. This is 1333. And I've read that it will actually run 1333. Now, these systems came in two different flavors in the 27-inch in late 2009. You had the Core 2 Duo version, and then you had these, which are the i5, i7 versions. The i5, i7 versions can run 1333. In fact, I've got a gaming laptop the same generation that runs 1333, and it runs it fine. And as I've read, a lot of people have managed to get 1333 to work, and this will run 32 gigs of RAM. So before we tear the thing open, I want to upgrade the RAM and just see if the RAM works before we start cracking it open. Otherwise, we'll be stuck with 8 gigs of RAM because that's really all I have. So let's get to it.
I think I learned my lesson, and I'm not gonna let you out of my sight. You can call me killer, 'cause I'll bring you to the light, and it might take a bit of...
All right, the RAM's installed. Let's plug it back in and just see if it works. Okay, a quick backstory before we check the RAM. I'll tell you one thing, this thing booted a lot faster. Even with the hard drive, it was actually quite impressive. So I think it's working. But real quick, GT, aka Greg Thompson, got this thing when it was getting ready to be recycled. And he used this for a secondary screen for a while and a few other things, and filled this thing full of stuff. And used it for a little while, then decided to retire it and sold it to me. And if you look here, and it's not really noticeable in darker screens and stuff, but the LCD's got some issues with it. Not really sure what that is. It could just be from behind the screen. The glass here, I'm not really sure, but it looks like it's in the screen. So that's probably why it was getting recycled. Well, that and the fact it was getting kind of long in the tooth, I'm sure, and who knows, they may have been experiencing GPU problems too. But let's check that RAM. 32 gigs of 1333. And Apple says it can't be done. They're all running at 1333, and they're working quite well. And this thing's a lot snappier even with a hard drive. Now in the later OSs, the newer ones, it's still going to be really slow with a hard drive, but that's impressive. 1333, let's start ripping this thing apart. Okay, so I've already done the sketchy part of removing the glass piece because I didn't have any suction cups and had to use my fingers. I would not recommend doing that. I didn't want to film that because it's kind of cringe, but I'm so used to doing this now, it doesn't really matter. But don't do what I do. When it comes to this, you really need some sturdy suction cups to pop this open because it's, yeah, you don't want to break the glass. I'm pretty good at it now. I can usually feel when it's flexing a little too much. And I haven't broken one yet, knock on wood. So, but now we're going to start taking this thing apart. iFixit's guides aren't very useful for this model. There's a lot of video guides. I'm not watching a video to do this because it would take forever. So we're following another guide for like an inverter removal, which will actually show me how to take the thing apart because the rest won't. So yeah, let's get started.
When you're answering to God, you can call me killer. As you look into my eyes, nothing but a sinner. You won't get away this time.
All right. Oh, this is nerve-wracking. These things are heavy. That's where most of the weight's coming from the computer, I think. Remove all the cables and label them. Yeah, that's not happening. It doesn't tell me which cables I need to remove either. So I guess anything connected to it. Oh no, this is going to be a nightmare. Oh no. You know, I should have got an SSD adapter for that. Oh well, we'll tape it in. Quality Hrutkay mods there. It was not fun. It was a pain, actually. Woo! Okay. So here's the original GPU, which is probably dying. I didn't need to remove that door. Oh well. Now I'm not replacing the CPU because I know GT already did it. And repasted it. And I like how he put the warranty void if removed sticker back on. That's funny. But I know he upgraded that. So that should be nice and pasted. This needs to come off. So, but while we're in here, let's put this to the side. Let's change out the SSD, which I don't have anything to change it out with to prop it in place. It's a problem. I'll come up with a solution. I'll be right back. Alright, so before we upgrade this SSD, you may have noticed something that I'm missing. And that would be that special temperature sensor cable. Which of course you don't need the temperature sensor. You can use a fan curve to fix this problem. The thing is, I don't want to do that. And back in the day before they made aftermarket cables for these SATA cables, the easiest thing to do would be just take the board out in the hard drive. Now, of course, I'll be losing the fact that I have a hard drive, but it's not a great hard drive anyway. Although it is a 2 terabyte, but it's not a big deal. If anything, I can order another board for it, I'm sure. So I'm going to remove this hard drive, pull the board out, We'll leave it plugged in. We'll leave it in there. In theory, that should fix it. And then I got to figure out how to mount that to this without it, moving. Man, I should have thought of that. Okay, so I've looked it up, and for the temperature sensor, there is a workaround where you just unplug this, cut the end off, and solder the wires together. Pretty simple. We'll try that and see if it works. So let's take this hard drive out. There's the original hard drive. How am I going to mount that to this? Alright, so here's my solution for the SSD here. Use the original hard drive bracket, a zip tie, and even use two of the original screws. That screw keeps the zip tie from falling off, and then that screw keeps the hard drive, SSD from falling off. Let's mount it back in here. See if it will freely float here. Well, crap. I put it on backwards. Let's just flip the wires. What's the worst that could happen? It's not like it's not already janky as it is. There. It's a little floppy, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Well, that's the first thing. I've got to modify this wire, and then we'll move this off and go to the logic board. Alright, so we got the cable modified. Now this will only work on 2009 models. The 2010 and 2011 models, you've got to modify another spot. It's either going to be on the SATA connector or somewhere else on the board, which involves soldering. This, you just literally put these two wires together, it should work. We'll put this to the side and hopefully I won't forget to put it back in. Let's move this and get the logic board. Oh, it's so light right now. All right, so we've got all these parts here. I think I got to remove two screws, and it should flip upwards. In theory, we will see if that theory is correct. All right, so we don't need all this stuff. What type of tip is this? T8. If I'm right, let's unplug the hard drive tip, or video card tip. If I'm right, remove these two, you should just spring right up. Although I think I see a heatsink might be still connected to the bracket. Let's see. The card comes right out. Awesome. So we don't need the logic board right now. This is what we have to deal with. Okay. I'm thinking I remove these 4 screws, it will pop right out. I don't know. Let's see. It's been so long since I've done this, and the other heatsink was a little different because the other heatsink's for an MXM-A card, and this is an MXM-B card. Okay. So first off, Some of these heat sinks have to be modified to fit one of these cards on, and it might not need modifications. Maybe. We'll have to see. It looks like everything lines up. And if I was smart, I would have bought thermal pads. Hopefully these will work. They look very used though. So, here's the dying card. Here's the new card. And they're about the same size. About the same layout. It looks like they supplied me with a different backing bracket. Usually you have to modify these brackets. This one is specially made for this card. It might work. And does it line up? It does line up. So we can use that bracket. Let's see how this meets up here. Yeah, I was afraid of that. It doesn't fit. Well, crap. I've got to get these two pieces smooth so it will bypass that, and then it should sit flat. Well, that just made this even more challenging. So I'm going to go downstairs to my grinder and try to grind that off without screwing anything else up. Like these thermal pads, that would be bad. Modifying an iMac heatsink is a pain in the butt because this is really sturdy. And to fit this into my bench grinder, I had to take my bench grinder apart to get these edges cut down here so the card now sits flush. So, we've already cleaned off the heatsink. I've lost some of the thermal paste material here, which I guess won't matter a whole lot because these don't line up perfectly. I'm thinking this is basically just weird thermal paste goo. If I add some thermal paste to it, it's not recommended, but it should in theory work enough to get some interfacing there. So we'll do that. And that way, everything still has a good. This thermal paste is really nasty now. I don't know if I should even use it. It's probably got a lot of metal in it. I don't know. It's just YOLO it. I mean, this Arctic Silver 5 is not conductive, and it will fill in the voids hopefully. So, I cleaned off the GPU, just put a dab on it and spread it. And there's no hitting, everything clears. It's flat on the GPU. It's ready to put back into the board. Let's start reassembling this thing. Whew, I'm tired now. All right, let's get this slotted in. And the new card is installed, so I am going to start piecing the iMac together. This is my least favorite part about taking apart an iMac, is putting it back together and making sure all the wires get plugged back in, which I always tend to miss one or plug something in wrong. I'm not looking forward to that. But I'm going to start piecing this together, and next time you see it, will probably mostly be back together. So I just fought this logic board for the last hour, trying to figure out why this side wouldn't go in. I took it out multiple times. Didn't see anything. Kept putting it in. Finally, I basically was hanging upside down on this table, just trying to figure out why it wasn't doing anything. To allow it to drop in. Left speaker, is that the left? Yeah, left speaker cable was catching the corner of the board. And it's a miracle I didn't snap the thing in half as much as I was fighting with it. But the cable looks fine. We got everything back together. I even flipped the SSD back around so the wires would face in the right direction. And it's actually a lot more stable that way too. And I have taped off and plugged in the hard drive sensor. It looks like it's good. I believe I got every wire back in. Now I just need to put the LCD back on and test boot it for the first time and pray it works. So, yeah, I'm going to go connect the LCD and I'll be right back. Alright, so I haven't put the screws back in the LCD yet. I haven't put the glass back on. This is the first boot test, just to see if it works. So let's see what happens. I got sound. I don't know if that's both speakers, but that's a good first sign. Screen probably should have turned on by now. What are the chances this isn't a PC flash card and I got screwed? Still no video. I'm getting a little nervous now. I can't tell if it's loading because there's no hard drive in it now. The fact that nothing has been happening does not instill confidence in me. Should have booted by now. Let's see if it has. Mouse is on. Caps lock doesn't work yet, so maybe not. Something's not right. Okay, it's off. What is wrong? I know one way to make sure the card is working. Let's plug a display into it and see if it will do something like target disk mode or something like that. Because if that's the case, the LCD is not working, which would suck. First problem, the logic board is in the case crooked. I can't plug any other ports in. Yay. So I think I've come to the conclusion that the video card isn't working. Because I have it plugged into a monitor right now and it's not doing anything. Which means I'm going to take the whole thing apart again and pray that it's just not plugged in completely. The GPU is not making any heat, which makes me think it is not connected. I don't see how it couldn't be connected though. I really don't want to take this apart again. Either it's not connected or the video card is dead. Well, I am calling it a night for tonight. I'm bleeding. I've taken this thing apart 2 or 3 times. Still can't get the card to work. There's a chance the card works, but right now it's not making any heat, so it's not actually activating, so it's not working. I don't know if it works, but I know this is the most temperamental of the Kepler cards. It's the hardest to make work, and it's not really supported by anyone that does it. And I got this card off of eBay a long time ago, so I can't return it. Yeah. So, hopefully there'll be an ending to this video. So it's about 2 or 3 days later. I was in the middle of filming, beginning to film another video, and I just couldn't not keep staring at this thing. So I'm going to try to at least get it running again to a degree. So we have to put in the original GPU and put it on this now messed up heatsink that won't cool it properly, but hopefully it will at least keep it cool enough to keep running, at least in 2D mode. We know 3D is now fried. So I'm going to put it back together. I did some research. It looks like I might be able to put in some NVRAM parameters and other stuff to get it to turn the screen on if the card's good, but at this point I'm thinking I got screwed over, plain and simple. Because it wasn't a cheap card, but it's also a Chinese card, and there's a good chance it was never tested. You gotta be careful when you buy used cards. So it's probably fried, but I'm not 100 on that. So I at least want to get this thing running again, show the nice performance boost it got, if anything. But it's really disappointing so far, and I can't use this much longer because I know that GPU is going, even though they usually don't. The 4000 series are pretty reliable. This one isn't. So, yeah. All right, so we've got it screwed back together. I just got to put the LCD back on and pray it works. So I'll be right back. All right, we've plugged the LCD in. Let's see what happens. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. Whoa, it's fast. This thing is such a snail's pace loading with the old hard drive in it. And it's still loading. So yeah, I'm thinking that card's dead. But I do have some ideas that we will talk about in a minute. I think I'm going to put this thing back together, wipe it down a little bit, and we'll do a quick power on and speed test. Actually, we're doing it right now. There we go, we're in. And yes, it still has GTs installed in it, like I said before, only this is now on the SSD, and it's booted, more or less. So we don't really need to do a boot test now, but we'll at least wrap up the video on a not super high note, but an okay one. So let's finish wrapping this thing up. It's running. The thermal paste on the GPU was dried out. I think it actually might work now, and I want to actually run a benchmark on it. What we will do is we'll run this on the max settings, because I just want to know how bad it is. Actually, let's do it on extreme. Nah, it's a hard one. Let's do custom, ultra quality, disabled, and we'll run it at system resolution and see if it will actually run now. I don't see anything. Huh. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it broke. I had a feeling it was going to work this time. Tell you what, let's try medium. Turn anti-aliasing off and run it in windowed and see if it will run. The card is sick. It runs that way. So let's benchmark it real quick, and we'll see how it works. The spots I cut off on the heatsink shouldn't actually affect the chip on this too much, because those spots weren't really cooling a whole lot anyway. So I think it could survive at least one benchmark. So let's set you up with an actual tripod and see what happens. Okay, so we'll run the benchmark and pray it keeps running, and pray it doesn't melt anything, because, well, this is the only card I have right now for it. there we go. There's our results for the benchmarks. I mean, it's not awful. It's not awfully great either. But it's amazing the card actually made it through it. Let's do a quick screenshot of that. We've got a screenshot of that. We'll close that out. So, yeah, I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot quicker than it was, and I've got a lot of ideas to figure out how to fix this. There's the current specs. It's still working fine, other than the 3D acceleration not working all the time. I can't really leave High Sierra and expect it to work properly. Even with the patchers, it's just, it's still more of a High Sierra machine right now, but it is fully maxed out now and runs very, very quick. I keep hitting the wrong buttons here. I mean, it's fast. It's not a dual 880 system. I mean, we still have the 4850 in it, but I mean, right now, this would still be a very useful system just for little things. Web browsing would still be okay with an updated browser. You can run Windows on this like no other probably, but it's still, it's Windows. This is a Mac, so we will have to get a Mac card for it that will work. And my ideas for this is to actually either try to fix this 880 card, which I have no clue if I'm going to be able to. I have a feeling I won't be able to. Either put a 780 in it, which is almost the same card. It's just it wouldn't be a dual 880 system. I couldn't claim it to be a dual 880 system. Or we could go with something that will be supported in the future, no doubt, until they stop releasing Intel Mac OS installs, which would be a new AMD card. And they do make some MXM cards that fit this. They're AMD, that have metal support and still have native support for, the GPUs. So those are my options right now. I'm going to look into what I can do. I really wish this video had finished out a lot better than it did. But this thing is literally probably, I swear, probably 10 times faster now. It boots quicker and all this stuff. I can tell even from the camera and the flicker that there is some LCD issues, so I'll eventually have to replace this LCD probably. Plus you can see all the darkening up in that area. That is all the LCD. That actually could just be the backlight from the flickering. Maybe the backlight's going out. I'm not really sure. I didn't want the video to end this way, but rest assured there'll be a part 2, and it won't take 4 years to film it like the one I did on the 2011 model, 21.5 inch. Trust me on that. We'll figure out some way to get a good card in this thing that will actually work, because these 880s are kind of finicky to begin with on these systems. For some reason, the 880, no one wants to support them to begin with. It's hard to find the flashes for them. It's hard to make them work. I don't know what it is about them. They just don't like working. And I didn't know that until after I bought the card, that many people have already tried it, and it didn't work for them. But it works for some people, so we might still be able to make it work. There's some NVRAM parameters and stuff that might be able to force the LCD on, but I don't feel any heat in the card at all, so I don't think the Mac's detecting it, and I don't think it's turning it on. So either the card's dead or it's just something wrong. Plus, I also figured out that the bracket that held the GPU on has loosened over time, and I had to tighten that up. It could have been part of it, but I doubt it. So this system is still a work in progress. It will get better. It will be maxed out one day, and it will be running the latest OS, and it will do it just as fast as about any new modern Mac that's Intel based anyway. So I'm looking forward to these future videos coming up, and I hope you guys at least enjoyed me going crazy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and this has been a Hrutkay Mods video.